Hello and welcome to Leeroy Gaming, where today I'm going to make for you guys another Outriders video. Now, what we're going to focus on today is the Technomancer class skill tree. If you're not familiar with my content, I tend to be pretty OCD and go really in depth when it comes to looking at all the skill nodes, abilities, etc. Now, this is based off the demo version, so I don't have everything unlocked yet. Fortunately, all the skill nodes are shown here. So if you're somebody that has been wanting to know what the skill nodes are, what kind of builds you can make potentially by looking at these, this is the video for you. Now, I will be doing these for all four classes. If you see this video early on and you have a preference as far as which one I should do next, leave a comment below. I'll prioritize them based on the comments I receive. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in and take a look at the Technomancer. Now, the Technomancer is a base class, long-range support, gadget focused, has a melee skill at baseline. The damage numbers here, by the way, will vary as you level up, but you can do some damage, inflict freeze to all enemies within a small radius. This ability from my Let's Play First Impressions video is kind of awesome. It literally freezes the enemy. And the enemies around you, and you can just back up, shoot them. I don't know if there's a limit, but it's like a perma CC for a couple of seconds. Seems pretty debilitating. Healing mechanic for this class is, as a Technomancer, you will recover a portion of damage you deal as health. And here are your base effects here at the bottom. Increase long range weapon damage by 15%, skill leech by 15%, and weapon leech by 15%. So what this basically means, those percentages at the bottom there, is 15% of all the damage due of your abilities, your skills, come back to you as health, and 50% of all the damage due of guns as well. Now there's going to be, you can notice all these nodes. Each one of these nodes takes a point to kind of unlock. You're going to only get 20 of them as you level up to level 30. So you can do some quick math here. Not going to be able to do that much. I was messing around with a build earlier. You can basically build through to one skill cap. So I was doing kind of like a tech shaman build, like a very tanky build that also focused on turrets, etc. I was able to make my way through here. I like one or two extra buffs where I did two of these elements, and then I was able to kind of cross down over and get one of these extra nodes here, and pretty much ran out. So the majority of this you're not going to be able to get. Luckily, respecs are free. So let's get started. I'm going to work from the way up and then come on down. So we'll start with the Pestilence tree. The first note, VR8 Impact Amplifier, increase your weapon damage by 8%. Next section, you have a choice of one or two nodes. You can, of course, get both of them, but they'll take 2 points. But Suction Modules, the first one, increase weapon leech by 5%, so up it to 20%. Or reduce decay skill cooldowns by 15%. And you can see the affected skill icons here. So one of your turrets, and not sure quite what the other one is based on looking at it, but you can kind of take a look there. Drill coating is next one. This one you have to go through if you're going to go up this route. Increase armor piercing by 15%. This node here is Sniper Master, so increase your sniper weapon damage by 40%. So this is a huge buff. Also, it seems like there are nodes throughout that let you increase drop chance of specific weapons for kind of focus farming. So 12% more often you're going to find sniper weapons, and your sniper weapons are marksman rifles, automatic sniper rifles, and bolt action rifles. Next, you have a choice between nitrogen capsules, so it decreases the distance considered to be long range by 3 meters, or you can do toxic affliction, inflict on enemies last 30% longer. Now this mechanic is important because you're going to see later on this tree, you get certain buffs when you are doing damage of a weapon that's considered long range. So snipers are obviously automatically long range, but if you stack the different nodes that decrease distance for something to be considered long range, you can get rifles to be considered long ranged, and you can dip into those benefits. Obviously, if you're coming across these lines, as you see here, from like the mid to the tech shaman, or if you're coming all the way down from Demolisher up to here, you may struggle to get enough of those nodes. I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed to struggle to get the nodes to get some of those benefits. But that's what this is for if you were curious. Next, increase your weapon damage by 8%. Nice, basic. Then you get Cannonade, so activating an ordnance skill. So that's another one of the tiers, as you can see, very like bombardiering skills. That first icon is the first ability you get, skill ability. You kind of throw in like shrapnel. Looks like you basically throw like a mine that explodes when enemies get nearby. It's okay. I'm not a huge fan of it, but so when you activate this ordnance skills, increase the weapon damage for you and your allies by 30% for 10 seconds. Baseline, to give you an idea, the ordnance skill that you unlock at first level is going to have a 24-second roughly cooldown before any modifications. So this allows you to have an almost 50% uptime for this 30% buff before you factor in any cooldown modifiers. Next, you have nitrogen capsule on top. So again, you can double dip to decrease the distance to consider to be long range by 3 meters. Or you purge enemies affected with toxin receive 10% more damage. So as you can see here, you have the longer lasting toxins and then more damage. So if you're going to go for a toxic build. Then you have another basic, increase your weapon damage by 8%. Next one here is Assault Master. So this is increase your assault weapon damage by 20%. Notice that's 20% as opposed to the sniper one was 40%. Increased chance of assault rifles to drop by 12%, and these include assault rifles, light machine guns, submachine guns, and the double gun. Next, you have again a choice here. The first one is increase your assault weapon damage by 12%. The other one, increase your sniper weapon damage by 12%. So again, you're asking yourself, are you going to specialize in one or the other? If you're going to go sniper, obviously you're going to want to kind of combine those. For the assault rifle, you could basically cross over from one of these other tiers, for example, or just ignore that tier if you want to go for that more mid-range effect. And as I mentioned, if you stack enough of these nitrogen capsules, you're going to be able to make assault rifles qualify as long range as well, right? So you get that choice. Next, increase your armor piercing by 15%. There is no choice. You have to get that. Then you have the choice of two sides of the power. Increase damage received from all sources by 15% and dealt by 20%. Now, I had another YouTuber state this incorrectly. He's like, oh, this is great. You take less damage and deal more damage. No. So, as the name implies, two sides of power. There's a cost here. You're going to take 15% more damage and do 20% more. So, there's a sacrifice. You're going to become more squishy, but you do more overall damage. And notice it's all sources, so it's not just weapons, like most of these are, or the abilities. To increase your long-range weapon damage by 30%, again, this is why it's so huge, because if you take these nodes, you can make those assault weapons count as long-range. Or you can just go sniper build and not care about those at all. Next, Grand Amplifications. Increase animality power by 4% for each unlocked BR8 Impact Amplifier class node. So these are these basic ones that are kind of forced. So if you had gone up this path, you would pretty much have gotten 3 already. So that would be, what are we looking at? 12%. Now, anomaly power, that just means your skills. Okay? I don't know why they're trying to be confusing. So it's either your skills or you can do weapon damage. It's as simple as that, guys. Increase your magazine size by 50%. Obviously, this could be really good for like sniper rifles of smaller clips. Then you have a choice between charged gunshot. First bullet after reload deals damage with 200% increased weapon damage. It can happen once every 5 seconds. So this is kind of big. So you would basically, this would be much more effective with like a sniper shot, where every 5 seconds you either running out of bullets and auto reloading, or just you can in your head say, okay, it's been 5 seconds, reload, shoot, reload, shoot. You can kind of game that potentially, or just go with the flow and see how it goes. Not nearly as effective with large capacity gear unless you force reload. Obviously, anti-counterintuitive with the increased magazine size. And then the other choice is enemies afflicted with toxic receive 30% more damage. So again, that comes up twice. So you could have it, this one's 10%, this one's 30%. So that's 40% you can get there. And then the capstone here is empowering antenna. Activating decay increases, decaying skills increases weapon damage for you and your allies by 40% for 10 seconds. So that's interesting. So next, we're going to look at this middle tier and also look at the crossover. So let's say you go down the middle tier, and this Tech Shaman's the more tanky-like build. So if the top one's long-range assault rifles, sniper rifles, this is tanky, and you'll see right off the bat, anomalous body, 10% increase to health. That's mandatory. Then you can increase your resistances by 20%, the Anita plates, or reduce gadget skill cooldowns by 15%. That middle skill right there, that is your heal. And it's the only active heal ability in the game. So it's got one of your turret stat and the other one, I don't know what that's some sort of movement skill. Next, you got another anomalous body, increases your health by 10%. So again, you're basically mandated if you're going down this way to get 20% more health. Now there is a crossover node here. You can cross over either way. So if you had built top to bottom or bottom to top, there's exposing toxin. So every time toxic is afflicted on an enemy, vulnerable status is inflicted as well. I don't know what vulnerable it means in this game. I'm assuming it increases damage taken. It doesn't say by what percentage, but obviously if you're going to go for a toxic build, this is pretty big. Increasing your critical damage by 15%. That's pretty good. And so you could dip down into here, for example, if you have an extra point, especially for sniper rifles. I could see that being huge. And then you got marked for execution. So vulnerable afflicted on an enemy is 40% more effective. So again, depending on what that base vulnerability is, this could be huge. If it's 10%, not so much. Like if your base vulnerability, if the vulnerability is 50%, this could be huge. So it's going to depend on the strength of the base vulnerability. All right, let's move on. You have another armor plating option, so an additional 20% armor, so you could already get 20% armor and 20% resistances, so if you're going to get really tanky. Also, enemies afflicted with freeze receive 10% more damage. Now, there may be abilities that do this, but remember, your melee attack freezes enemies, and it's for multiple seconds. You can go in, melee slam people if you want. They're going to AoE freeze in that vicinity, and then just shoot the bejesus out of them. Next, another 10% health, and again, this is mandatory. I almost wish this was like a side one because I don't know how good that is. We'll see. Blur screen. I like this. This is a crossover skill. Your health regeneration threshold is increased by 20% of max health. Now, I don't know what that means. Threshold. Does that mean this class heals for percentage damage just flatline, depending. So I don't know what this threshold is anymore. And then decrease turrets health decay by 30%. So turrets in this game, you drop them and they last a certain amount of time, but basically it's not like they're full health and then they disappear. They just constantly lose health. So obviously they can die even faster if things damage them. Then you got one or two options. So increase your skill leech by 6% again. So this does not impact your weapon leech, but it does skill leech. So we had earlier seen weapon leech up here. You got skill leech. Technically, you might be able to double dip in here if you want to maximize leeching, but that's an option. You also got gadget here, reduces gadget skill cooldown by 15%. That's potentially nice. So the gadgets I've seen so far, actually, the one that you get, yeah, you do get access to this specific gadget on the bottom left-hand corner, like a little flamethrower. And I believe it's got a 22-second cooldown, so 10% or 15% is what, about 3 seconds or so? So, I mean, it's significant. Enough. Increases your health by 10 cents. 10% is the next one. And then you have two kind of bigger node options. Now, I really like this one for like a tanky turret build. Increase turret skill health by 100%. That is potentially huge. At the bottom, again, if you're going to go for a freeze build, every time freeze is afflicted on an enemy, vulnerable status is inflicted as well. And then we got marked for execution. If you go down this path here, vulnerable afflicted on an enemy is 40% more effective. Take a look at that stacking. Again, you could go down this tanky build here at the bottom, and let me see, and you could potentially dip up here, get get 40% vulnerability here, 40% vulnerability here. That's 80% vulnerability. Not sure if it's additive or multiplicative, but that's pretty big deal. But again, you would have to spend 1, 2, 3, 4 points outside of your norm here. And again, most of your toxic buffs so far we've seen have been in the top one. So you have to get kind of creative if you want to gain access to these. But definitely, I would feel like you would want to really min-max this. So you could, for example, somehow make it so you get vulnerability with toxic and when you freeze, either or, and get that buffed up. Let's see here. Next, you got more armor plating, so an additional armor plating of 20%. Or freeze afflicted on enemies last 20% longer. This may be overkill. The freeze, when I used it on the level 1, and maybe they built up a resistance to it on higher content, it lasted a while. I meleeed one of the big guys, if you watch my first impressions video, and this big dude that had a ton of health stayed frozen for like, seemed like 4 or 5 seconds, and I could just melee and reapply it indefinitely if I wanted to. And then increase weapon leech by 5%. That's always great. Survival. You have to take this one, so increase your armor by 20%, as long as you want to move forward, that is. This one's also really, really cool. Using a gadget, which again, if you're going down the street, you're going to be using, most definitely, that's your heal, that's that flamer turret. Using a gadget skill increases all healing received by you and your allies by 30% for 7 seconds. That means individual other characters, their special ways of healing, it's going to be buffed. Your base healing and also that ability, so that's pretty nice. Doctor of Medicine, increase all healing by 20% for you and your allies. Again, man, that is just great. So use a gadget and get both of these, 50% extra healing. Huge. Oh, and by the way, Vitality Magnet, increase your skill leech by an additional 6%. So you could really stack this up. Between these two, you could get 12% from skills, or you can get Fracture. Enemies afflicted with freeze receive 30% more damage. So you can really build out that freeze line here. And again, the ultimate capstone here is overclocked. Now this one, as I noticed, seems to be the most unique of all of these as far as the effects, because the top one will only have, it's a buff that you do for damage. The bottom one you'll see is similar, except this one's for weapon. The bottom is for skills. But this one is activating gadget skill, increases your both of them, anomaly, power, and weapon damage by 40% for 10 seconds. So I don't get this. You get the best of both worlds. This seems almost broken, unless they're saying, you're sacrificing a lot of damage nodes for these two. So that's why this is so powerful. But take a look, 40% for both when you activate a gadget, as opposed to just 40% weapon, or spoiler alert in advance, 50% for the skills. On top of that, for 10 seconds upon losing all health, you will receive a second chance to return to the battlefield with 50% health. The effect may occur once every, basically, a minute and a half. That's just ridiculous. Or sorry, my bad, 3 minutes. That's just so powerful. So powerful compared to anything else. So again, I don't know if they're still balancing this, but this seems broken. Alright, so there's the Tech Shaman. Now let's take a look at the final way to go down, and down the bottom here. The Demolisher tree, as well as the crossover here. So you start with a mandatory anomaly fueled, increases your anomaly powers by 6%. So as you noticed here, right off the bat, this is going to be more skill buff focused. Then you have an option, increase your resistance piercing by 15%. So again, bypassing enemy resistances. Or you can get 15% skill cooldown reduction to the ordnance skills. Then you have a mandatory, another anomaly fueled, increases anomaly powered by 6%. So if you go down this route, you already have 12%. Now you can go up to sidearm adept, increases pistol and revolver damage by 12%. Winter's Barrier, after using your class melee skill, increase damage mitigation by 40% for 3 seconds. So again, I would think this is more often used for that Tech Shaman crossover. You run in there, you melee something to freeze them, get that 40% mitigation, start blasting them, and then kind of reapply the melee skill. So that's pretty good if you're going to be a little closer ranged combat focus. And then freeze afflicted on enemies last 20% longer. Again, because there's only 20 skill points in this whole tree, this, in my opinion, probably going to be overkill. Freeze lasts a long time. We'll see. Next, you get increase your resistances by 20% and eat up plates as an option. Or welcome shot. The first shot after reload deals damage with firepower increased by 15% of your anomaly power. So this is increasing weapon damage based on how high your skill damage is. So interesting synergy. Then you got the mandatory increase your anomaly by 6%. Again, if you're keeping track of the mandatory elements, if you come down this bottom path, you have 18% to that. The crossover skill is wipeout. Enemies below 30% health receive 20% more damage. So again, this is like an execute mode. The bottom one is adrenalizing antenna. Activating decay skills increase your anomaly power for you and your allies by 30% for 10 seconds. Okay, so interesting. And again, notice anomaly power very specific. So buffing your spells or skill spells, whatever you want to call it. Now you can double dip on Ordnance Technician, so decreasing the cooldown by an additional 15%. That could be really cool. We're talking about 30% here now. That's significant if you want to spam abilities as opposed to relying on weapons as much. This could be really big, especially if you can get some gear with cooldown reduction. Or Toxic Afflicted on enemies lasts 30% longer. Now this seems a little out of place so far, as I've seen at the very top some toxic buffs. Nothing in the middle for the most part, and now it's at the bottom. So next option, or mandatory, is another 6% basically skill power. So again, this is really adding up. There's 4 nodes now for it. And now heavy absorption, activating ordnance skills increases skill leech by 15% for 7 seconds. Again, so you're gonna pop these down. Potentially you can spam them, and then any damage those skills do are gonna heal you for more and more. Then you have an option to even dip even further into increasing your skill powers by an additional 6%. Or you can increase toxic damage by 20%. Again, you are not going to be able to get all of these across all of them without, really limiting yourself in diversity. So you can do it sometimes, but remember, only 20 nodes by the time you're max level. And then a mandatory increase your resistance piercing by 15%. So again, you have the potential of having a total of 30% of that if you really wanted to. You can increase your skill leech an additional 6%, so that's starting to get up there. And you have this armored unit. Activating ordnance skill increases your armor by 50% by 15 seconds. Now do note this is so far out of the way that if you were going for a super tanky build, like the Tech Shaman build, you probably will not have enough points to kind of get all the good defensive buffs from up here, and then come down here unless you really sacrificed your capstone. So again, this is a way to make, more than anything, make Demolisher a little bit more tanky, especially since you're going to be spamming these ordinances. So this can be in a different way, which can make it pretty darn tanky, like the Tech Shaman. Just through a lot more life leech, and then really relying on this 50% armor buff. All right, moving on. Increase anomaly power by 6% again. So this is getting, we're looking at 1, 2, 3. Sorry. And I have one here as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 6, what? 42% skill power boost right just off those potentially. Then you have another option. Team player decreases elite's damage against you and your allies by 10%. Flat damage reduction. Pretty darn nice. Emergency transfusion doubles your skill leech when your health goes below 30%. So again, this is a different type of tankiness. It's more about healing back as opposed to having the higher armor and a higher health, but another way to get really tanky. And then finally, increase toxic damage another 20%, or increase anomaly power 6%. And the capstone, activate ordnance skills increases anomaly power by 50% for 10 seconds. So between this and the passives, I believe it was 92% that I counted, assuming it's additive and not multiplicative on the skill-based power. So a lot of potential here for this game as far as different skill build-outs. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I am going to be doing the same kind of format for the other classes. Again, if you're enjoying this content, you're finding it helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys next time on the next episode of Leeroy Gaming.